forever, and so does me and you. We say we love, we say we love. We gave it all, we gave it all. We say we love, we say we love. But we were just innocent until something better came along. Fall in love and tear it down as soon as we wake up. Promise you the world tonight, show you what I've got. Your body speaks my language and you read me like a book. This night means forever, and so does me and you. We say we
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the stream. This is Chill Polly. So this is almost going to be like some crazy endurance match where I'm going to try and get as much work done for as long as I can. Basically just trying to get the skinning on this mesh done. We've got all of the controls set up now. Hang on, let me just get my tablet pen stand. There you go. So every part of this is now linked to, like, every bone on the master skeleton is now linked to a control, except for the face bones. But we'll deal with them when the time comes. The reason for that is because checking the volume on this here, actually checking it's not too loud. The reason for that is because every face is different, so it may be best to make the controls and the parameters afterwards. Every character's got like corrective blend shapes after the fact anyway, but because this is the first rig, we'll just try and base it off of this character that we've got and then adapt later. But anyway, so all of the hair pieces have controls to move the hair around, and what we're working on today is the actual skinning of it. So what you'll notice is that there will be some parts that move incorrectly, like the mesh moves incorrectly, but the actual the bones, if I can find the control, yep. Let me just hide my geometry for a second, just to see it. I may reconsider some of the control positions or the scale of it, but that's easy to configure. But when we look at the bones, right, they all move according to what we want them to do. Obviously, what we're going to fix today is the actual geometry that's bound to it. And thankfully, I took the time to actually bind all of this geometry before the session. So you won't have to sit through any disconnections, hopefully, in terms of rebinding meshes. But I think most of that was down to binding by geodesic voxel, which is a very intense process. Alright, so, and in this stream, what we're going to be using for most of this is the Cintiq that I've got here, but I've mapped it to the screen because with this kind of thing, it's probably easier to have the larger screen estate that my 27-inch monitor has versus the 16-inch Cintiq 16 that I've got. If I was actually drawing or painting, I would definitely use the actual Cintiq screen. So, right. And skinning is a interestingly boring process where we would basically be moving parts around and making sure that the skin weights are correct. So, the place I tend to start tend to be the easiest places. And you'll notice, for instance, this is with the default right now, like what you normally get. So if we just take some time to hide some of the geometry that we've got. We'll go into what the proxy geometry is in a bit, But first, let's just analyze the leg stuff that we've got. That much. Oops. There we go. Was accidentally hidden the group. But as we can see, right, just for what we get when we start with, over here is pretty decent. Over here is working, but obviously needs more weight applied to this ankle. And obviously we're getting a bunch of collapsing over here. So that's what we're going to start with and then work our way up. Let's just, oops, could have just zeroed that. And it's great that we have what I've called the slave skeleton, or like the copy, the actual game skeleton. So if we hide, are we hiding the master skeleton here? Hang on. Ah, it's because it's just slightly glitched. Sometimes when you open a Maya file and the visibility of the layer isn't, sometimes it just needs to be refreshed. So that's fine. All right. So anyways, we just hide our controls and our. You're not in the right thing. Let me throw you back in there. Oh. Hang on. That's a little weird. Oh, maybe it's just that I didn't hide them. Ah, there we are. That was dumb. I don't forget you saw that. Anyway, so what we've got here. Yep, as you can see, yep, it moves according to the control that we've got. But the control moves the master skeleton, and the master skeleton has children in the exact bones where they exist in the slave skeleton. So if we hide the master skeleton, on the slave skeleton, everything follows down to that singular route over roughly about here. So when we move the control, the master skeleton is moved according to the control, and then the slave skeleton copies what the master skeleton is doing. So we have this sort of two-stage process, but the difference is that the slave skeleton has a singular hierarchy. Like everything comes from the root bone, whereas in the master skeleton that doesn't happen, and everything's kind of allowed to join or be uncoupled as we please, right? So this is how we sort of have modular parts in our master skeleton. At least that's what I understood on the course that I was doing. So when we look over on the master skeleton structure here, they're all like kind of separated out like this. And then we look at the slave skeleton, everything joins to the root. Right? What it does after that is whatever it wants to be doing, but it just resembles a real skeleton more. Anyways, without further ado then, since we don't really need to see the master skeleton anymore, we just make absolutely sure that's hidden. The slave skeleton is 100% reflective. I've checked this last night. So all that's left is to actually start this skinning process. And that is quite simple. It's very simple, but it's very, very boring. So that's what makes this kind of a bit of an endurance. So I'm going to just hide a bunch of stuff that I don't need to see. Right, so we're focusing purely on the legs right now. And what I want to do is I want to animate the controls to go over and do various poses. And then I will scrub through the timeline through these animations and adjust weights accordingly using the tablet pen. Okay, so let's to get one thing out of the way as well, we can also mirror the weights over from one side to the other if they're symmetrical. So we're going to abuse that a lot. And there's another trick I think I'm going to be trying out today, which involves proxy geometry. So proxy geometry, in this case, is actually simplified versions of geometry that we've got for complicated stuff. We'll get into that in a little bit later when we go to do it. But for now, let's just try and make a start with the actual the legs and move upwards. This is kind of the place that I like to start. It's just easiest. What we're going to be doing today as well, the music's a little different today. It's still from Epidemic, but we're going to kind of switch it up as and when I feel like. So it might be a little bit more dynamic today. Also, there's a lot more vocal tracks in this particular album, which I do like. Probably will also help because we won't be talking that much this stream. Alright. So, but to briefly go through what I'm going to be doing, put a keyframe over on 0 on this control. And skip over to, say, 60. This is going at 60 FPS. We could always change it to something else if we really want. And we're just going to try, like, making a sensible sort of pose. So something like that. Then we're going to go to the next frame. We'll say frame 120. That's another 60 seconds, or 60 frames. It's going to zero that out. So that's the great thing about doing this when you've got the controls, is that zeroing things out becomes so much easier. Alright, extend this further on to 180. Oops, no, it's 190 even. Yep. I'm just going to scale that a little. There we go. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a pose that sort of contests the other aspect of this leg. Okay. So we're not focusing on the foot, we're focusing on the leg. Then we'll move into the foot. Just to sort of clarify that. Something like that. Okay. Now that I've done that, I'm going to hide my control layer, so I don't really need it anymore for now. And that's what we get right now. So, I'm going to right click on the mesh, paint skin weights, and then start actually trying to correct some of these weights. Over on the left here, I like to work in the additive workflow. That is to say, we only add and we never take away. And the only way that we effectively take away is by using the weight normalization. So every time we paint, the mesh is going to normalize as we're doing it. If it gets particularly like laggy, we can switch it to like post. But I generally like to keep it interactive. It's just the way that I've always done it. But mostly because I prefer if the mesh is reacting to what I'm doing. Alright, so our first point of action then is to correct this. I think it's fairly obvious to say that legs do not bend this way, and there is a lot more that comes through from the buttock through to the thigh. Pretty obvious. So go ahead, opacity 1.0, value 1.0, and I just want to check that my stylus pressure is on, and it is. So we want to be using stylus pressure, but I also only want to be adding so much, right? It can be a bit of a process. One thing as well, I just want to check before I go too far in this actually. So I want to check that there's no other weird bones that are assigned. And as you can see, there's a bunch here from the skirt that are affecting the leg. This obviously is not going to do. So I want to make sure that I find these and remove them. So I'm just making a mental note here as to what irrelevant bones are mapped. In this case, skirt 10, 5, 8, whatever. Great, that's fine. I'm going to go find them and then we're going to eliminate them. So skirt root here on slave skeleton. I'm going to just shift click it to expand it all out. You know, apron as well, why not? Let's go all the way to the bottom. So I've effectively selected every single bone here. I'm going to select the legs as well and switch to the rigging environment. And edit influences, remove influence. There you go. And that immediately changes the way this mesh works as well. You can see that this some of these have jumped because they have been renormalized, and now the Phi has taken them in much more, like it has taken much more control of them, which obviously we don't necessarily want. But for our purposes right now, what we need to make sure first is that there are no weird influences that are in effect, and then we correct. Okay. So obviously we don't need all that. I'm just going to take the buttock control and start applying some. I'm going to turn this up a bit. And the way that I like to work with skinning is that I smooth it after, unless I really need to separate, like you're seeing there. Okay. If I think it needs more geometry, we can always add it, but we would have to kind of reset it to 0 and then do that. And Maya can be unpredictable sometimes in the way that unbinding and rebinding will work with that. Well, not so much unbinding and rebinding, but editing a mesh that has been bound to a skeleton can be a risky endeavor. So you want to really be making sure that you have the geometry to support the bones before you attempt to skin it, really. But you know, sometimes we make mistakes, and sometimes we have to live with that. So we just do what we can. That's a bit smoother now, and we're just going to go ahead and start pulling at that. While we're there, add a whole bunch of that on. We're going to then smooth it out with everything that's then assigned to this Phi twist bone. Just going to take some drink. Being careful not to spill it on anything, because that'd be bad. Alright, and of course, as we're doing this, we are going to scrub through this timeline just to make sure that the mesh is behaving correctly when we're sort of, well, in effect, animating it. Because I'm working in an additive workflow, when we hit a point where we've added so much influence that others are starting to be zeroed out, that's when you sort of know that you've not so much went too far, but you've removed another influence, so to speak. And that can either be what you want, or in this case, it's not. As you can see, this vertex is drastically being affected versus this one, right? And no smoothing is fixing that. So, and as we can see why that is this does not have any influence over it, and it needs it. So I'm just going to adjust my brush using the B button and dragging from left, right. I just want to really sort of quick kind of brush over this, right? So everything kind of should be looking kind of like a smooth gradient. Because when you twist this, like, Phi bone, even though no such bone really exists, just muscles for us, there's always going to be, you know, more skin that you think is affected. Because it's just so transitional like that. Just like this, and add on over here. What I want, effectively, is that there should be no influence from anything around here over on the Phi, right? There might be like a tiny bit, but we would decide to add that in afterwards. So what I find works really well is if I basically flood it, but not with the flood button, but you know, just flooding it in terms of basically throwing as much value in it as possible, right? So that will basically turn this into basically, you know, 1.0 to this bone. And then if I select this influence and then start adding it in this way, okay, what you then get is you're taking away from this bone's influence and adding it to this one. So there's still only 2 bones that are effectively assigned to this piece of skin here. This particular thigh, anyway. Right? And then only then do I then start doing any kind of interpolative smoothing. And as you can see, it still has a bit of an effect where there's been a tiny bit where this is assigned that way. I suppose we can try and hit it with the hammer. So this weight hammer here, bang. Literally just highlight your vertex that's misbehaving, and some guesswork is done by Maya to work out whether or not that misbehavior is correct. In this case, it just looks at the surrounding vertices and then sort of makes its way according to that. In this case, it realizes that it's gone a little far. Hang on. Am I on paint? Ah, there we are. That's because I'm in paint mode. There we go. Make sure I'm definitely on that influence. Being smooth, but we're getting another instance where the weight hammer tool is needed. Select hammer. Is there a shortcut for the hammer, I wonder? Not that I can see. Right. We can see that's keeping its form a little bit better now. We're going to have to come back to this area afterwards, though, because we're going to have to configure the way that this thigh actually twists. But what we do know is that over, you know, around here, we're going to get basically, you know, near full amount of twisting. We know that because, of course, the bone itself is positioned and covers this area, right? So anything around here is going to have basically 100% weighting. We now need to change the way that this knee works just to make sure that it has the correct amount of influence as it's bending. And it may be easier if we have another key, perhaps at frame 30. If we go back to our controls, where we're going to move this like this, roughly enough. Okay, like that. I'm just going to stretch it like that. Right, so that's like the absolute like maximum that stretches, and we've done it on frame 30 there. So now when we do this, we now get a twist. The only problem with this twist is that we get a bit of a upward action there, and that's because, of course, it's just pulling a little far. We're just going to do a nice and quick way of resolving that, which is to quite literally just move the leg so that the curvature isn't quite as bad. It's still a little bumpy, and we could probably correct it a little more in the curves tool, but for now this will do. Just for making sure that we're twisting the... Sorry, when they're going to animate the leg and from the knee, it's going to be enough to be able to determine how much of it should come out. So I'm giving a lot of influence over to this phi here. What this basically would be is, you can think of that as sort of like the neutral. And then we can select this influence and start to affect how much of this actually pulls down. Most of it was quite good to begin with, which is good, but we just want to make sure that we are authoring over it and making our judgment. Now I'm just selecting the shin, like basically what I might call the second knee joint. Because it's nothing ever rotates on a perfectly central pivot on the human body, because that's just not the way that muscles work. Muscles pull and push, and we don't operate on real hinges, so to speak. Not like a door. Not 100% that fond of that one. I'm just gonna swap screens and have a look at something else. Well, basically the equivalent of next track, please. Right, yeah. And so basically the same deal as before, but we're progressing slowly from this bone and moving in. And this is a real point of contention here. I've also accidentally put a keyframe on the mesh, so I'm just going to remove it. So as this is moving up, curls in, like how much intersection should you have, right? Okay. You have to bear in mind that it is for video games, so you are going to get intersection. It's simply the way that works. But you can always, if you want to smooth it out, apply a little bit of the previous burn on there. I've just noticed that there's a little bit here that's applying from this phi, which is obviously not ideal. And I guess the way to sort of change that slightly careful here. You can sometimes run into a weird glitch where your paint brush doesn't quite show up. And sometimes you have to kind of jiggle the model around just to kind of get it to show up again. Making a point of using very low pressure. Okay, I'm not forgetting that I've got way more animations that I can use and scrub the timeline so that I can see the absolute like extreme of where this fully, fully folds, and you're going to get intersection, right? That is exactly the way that works. Just on actual like people though, this obviously folds. You can't really do folding when you're skinning this way, and instead you would rely on things like corrective blend shapes or things like that. With our stuff, I think we're gonna rely on like a mix of that and maybe some ZBrush. I don't know. Depends if we've got some time to do ZBrush. We're aiming to try and complete this and have it presentation ready by basically next week. Wub wub. I think that's a fair place where we can actually start smoothing it now. So we smooth it just so that it doesn't have like stark values, right? And as you can see, when we do smooth it, we do sometimes hit that sort of barrier where we either don't have enough max influences, or basically we've hit cap, or something's been set to 0. So it's a case of just correcting that. Only selected here. So there. That. Yep. Put some of that back. Smooth it back. Take some of this and give some of that back. But also select some of this and apply this so that when this is rotating, it is pushing the rest of the knee out more anyway. It's often like an effort of multiple bones to sort of cover each other in that way. Like, they all kind of contribute to keep the shape of the model as to what it's supposed to be. And there's a bit here as well where it should pull from the thigh, well, basically the top of the kneecap here. So you find that you actually get a lot of influence. Like, okay. Yeah. Smooth tool. Smooth that out a bit more. Smooth that. Very cool. Move back down. Assess from here. I think that it's going to need a bit of smoothing too. Most importantly, when you go and move other bones that are not related, they should definitely not move anything from the other side. Now, if a bone here on this side moves a bone over here, I don't care because we're going to mirror them over and it will correct that. But if this bone starts moving something on the foot, that'd be a real problem. I'm getting a little bit of a misshape over here, which I'm not particularly liking. So I'm going to apply some more influence over here. Much better. Yeah, the kneecap definitely needed more. Okay, look. Yep, that makes so much more sense. Pull that through more. While that's there, we should pull more of the top of the leg. Not accidentally adding the keyframe. And of course, since this rotates, it's also pulling along the whole of the thigh there, but not too much. If it affected too much, it might you might have some adverse effects. But since the leg only really rotates one particular way, it's not so bad. You just have to kind of be careful and prepare for anything weird that might happen. Right. You see, I'm pulling more from the upper thigh than you'd expect. But it's a very dark value, it's not a lot. We're going to go ahead and smooth that as well.
Summer's gone, I'm latching on. Don't even know your name, but you're still in my head. Underneath rays of gold, your body oh so close. No, I can't forget, no.
It's sappy for me, I'm afraid. Off we go. Where's that? Alright, next up. Alright. Get over here. Smooth it out a little. Like this. Definitely needed more influence here. Oh, it's not quite there. Slowly. I started off good and then it decided to devolve in outside my taste, I'm afraid. No. No, it ain't. What joy that is. That's taking way too long. Have a flick through. That's really strange to me. It's odd that. So we're gonna go through and flick through some more Epidemic here. See if we've got anything a little bit more I don't know. Something a little different, yeah. Okay. Alright, this might do. Alright, back to work. A bit more on that. Try and get it to keep its shape. Okay, smooth it. A bit here that's not playing nice. Should probably hide my controls as well, just make sure they're not in the way. out. Smooth that. Click through. Very nice, not bad for now. And then try the extreme one over here. Okay, so there's a bit over on the like fire around here that needs a bit more help. There. A bit more from the back here. That. Pull some of this back. Just a little bit. Let's give that a bit of a smooth as well. See, there's a tiny bit of influence over there. What I'm going to do is... Oops. Where did it go? Hang on. I just had it. Yeah, over here. Right. This one. Well, not this one. This one. Bang. This one. Bang. Because it shouldn't be affecting it that far. Wait again. It's on smooth, I need it on. It needs a little bit. Of basically like pull back. Not much, just a little. I'm gonna change the values here just to achieve that. Further up. Okay. Let's smooth it out a bit more now. how long have we been at it? 45 minutes so far on just this sort of like 5. Okay, it's a little short. It's probably about 30, but still. Yeah, this is why it takes long. But, you know. These parts here, I don't necessarily want to be affected by this like buttock bone, but instead, like over here should probably be affected more by the root or the hip joint rather. Not by much, but it does need some. Since it's near the front, you don't want it to be affected by when, for instance, like the buttock moves. Oops. Just do it a little bit on the top here. Not too much though. We've gone too far there. Get back. Gotta check it from all angles. Smooth it. May also be worth animating the buttock control here as well, just to sort of get a sense. Let me just set that to 0 there. Over on frame 30, just gonna throw that down. So, as like you lift the leg up here, this is gonna like move down as almost like a corrective bone. So just basically to try and maintain the shape. Of course, you could go like to the total extreme, right? But something like that. So that's a frame 60. No real difference there. And this is on frame 120, if I remember right. Yep, there we go. Move this back to 0. Was like you could totally like move that accordingly, like depending on like the stance they have. And lift off like that. 180. So this is, I guess, where it might compress a little bit, or it might go up. But I think it would compress. Just a little bit. Let's try that. Oh no, that's 0. Something like that. Okay. Get the controls off. Save. Just gonna flick through that. That's got a lot of influence there, which is to be expected. But how much of it does it actually need? Ever not a middle mouse the thing as you're painting it, as I keep doing. And yeah. So if this buttock controls obviously the buttock and that controls the thigh, and this hip is just going to be sort of neutral. But obviously, since it's connected to the hip bone, it still will affect any kind of animations that we do on the hip. So it gives us a little bit more sort of freedom to move this character. A bit of a smooth. Not much is happening though. Mostly because what needs to actually be moved in that case is the thigh. Then we go ahead here. Now it's not like this character's like backside really needs to be super detailed with this. It just needs to be able to actually work. So, because you know the really long skirt, it's not really required. The skirt has its own problems. Okay. Okay. So now if we go here and determine what we need to add to this, it actually needs more hip control from here. Or parts more closer to the center are going to need actual control from the root, since the hip shouldn't really move that as much. Like, and you can see like a lot of difference already in the way that we've been working. So this sort of side has way less influence on the root than what it already had to begin with, which was this. A lot of influence. Move that out a little. Yep. I guess we're putting a little bit of like inch influence here. Smoothing a little. Just checking back over what we did before, just to make sure we don't ruin anything by accident. I'm seeing a fun issue in the way that this mesh has triangulated. So you can see, for instance, here, it has triangulated like that. It obviously needs to triangulate the other way. So let's give it a try. See if we can make that work a little better. Now, I'm not normally into manual retriangulation, so we just have to kind of have a look. In Max, admittedly, this is a lot easier, but in Maya, I feel like this is less so. Hang on, let's check this one. I think you can just highlight this and then go flip triangle edge, perhaps? No, not quite. What did it? Oh, it did work. There you go. That wasn't so hard. Now, the only problem, of course, with this is that I've just done this. I have symmetry on, but obviously it's not going to work with that. So you think of that as like a test run. I'm just going to undo the change. I think. Hang on. At least I thought we did. Maybe I'd hit the wrong one. I'm not sure. Go again. This one. No, not you. This one. So that way. And when I look at it curving this way. Apparently that seems fine. Just checking I didn't lose track or something. Okay. Seems like that's fine. Apparently it was also fine on the other side, but I guess we'll go with that. If we see another error, we'll just sort of work with it. Anyway, let's do it. Is it like a bulge here? Not sure I like that. Smooth that. This, smooth that. You start also seeing where the influences end. So, and where it's sort of almost blocky like that. We don't want it to be blocky, because then otherwise it's gonna reflect when this bone twists. Not that there's gonna be that much like twist like that, but it's a potential issue. Just pulling that on a little bit, on this as well. A little, smooth it. Might be that it needs some from here, less from there. It's not the case. Maybe that is just what that looks like. In which case, that's okay. Smooth that. As one could imagine, this bone has no business being assigned here. Because when we twist this, it's not going to affect that. So we're just gonna kind of trying to raise it from it. That's like this, give it some influence back. Ah, I see where the bone was that had that problem going here. I think. Oh, it did have no issue. Weird. Maybe I'm going slightly nuts. I was sure that that had Yeah, there it is. Oh, but when I look at it like here, now turn back to object view. Now turn to paint view. Oh, right, I see. I see now. But it seems to be resolved after the fact, so I'm not too fussed then. Okay. This. Line a little like this, add some there. Okay. Okay. Obviously that needs a bit more this way. So pull that through. Now, does that need more or less? Okay. So when a compression happens, like this buttock bone should have much more control. Now that doesn't mean that when I'm painting this, that's what's actually like the intent. Right, this is just waiting no matter what. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm like in a particular pose or whatever. That's what corrective blend shapes and stuff are for. But what I'm doing is, you know, assessing it based on the current position that it's in, and then when I look at it in the other pose, right, it's the changes are still there. So it's just kind of trying to strike a balance before any kind of blend shape correction. Like the less like corrective blend shapes we have to make, the better. And that's assuming that we're going to do that. So something like that. Much more influence there. So trying to like maintain that sort of curvature that it's had. Just delete that keyframe. Because S is the keyframe button, like that generally applies to every available channel that the mesh has. Like sometimes you can accidentally press it, and that can be annoying, but no real harm. If you did it to the bone, that's a different story, because then the bone will maintain that position. Not that the mesh wouldn't, but it's easy to remove because it's bound already. So the keyframe there does nothing. But on a bone, it's catastrophic, because then you need to reset it to 0. And if you didn't have controls, that becomes, you know, that goes from the 2nd level of hell to like the 8th level. And then if you didn't have what's it called, preferred angle, I think it is, on the skeleton. That goes from the 8th level to the 9th level of hell, so, you know, not fun. Anyways, okay. We have a good compromise in terms of the compression versus the extension, I guess you would call it. I don't think that's like an official phrase. Like, but ignoring this weird triangulation thing that happens here, which is corrected in post anyway, right? Because that's fine. Let's go through. Yeah. If we just try like have a look now with no skeleton, we're just concentrating just purely on this thigh and this joint here as well. We haven't quite moved on up here. And this is without even considering the twist yet, so that's pretty good. Alright. So let's see if the wait, find where is it? Yeah. What I'm gonna do is just reflect the like angles and stuff that this had. So in terms of the animation, we're just gonna basically like copy some stuff over. So right, that reaches the height. Now we need to take the Z. And yeah, it's gonna look pretty freaky until we're done. Did I take the wrong thing? No. Right, okay, matches that. Now take the rotation, which is 90. There's something interestingly Doom-like about this soundtrack. That's really cool. I mean, it's a little bit like if like that one Doom song was that's to say original Doom, not the 2016 reboot thing. Like, it's a little bit like that. There's this one bit that's been mixed with like Genesis or the SNES sound card. And yes, I know that they're extremely different. I know. That one. What matters there? Okay, so frame 30's been taken, and we see that there's a massive difference in the way that that's rendered versus that one. Right, and that's not even getting into the knee twisting, or not twisting, knee bend. Now when we go over and start taking the knee bend, let's take this one first. 55. There. That one. One. Save that. Next bit, which I think is over here. Oh, that was the same apparently. Not sure. No, it was not. This one. 0 that if I remember right, yep. Save that frame. Frame 120. It's literally 0. Oh, the easiest one. Save that. And then where is it? This one. 96. 9. And then rotated 145 degrees. Yeah. Save that keyframe, right? So now we have the same range of motion, but now we have it on both legs at once, and they're both moving at the exact same like level. And we can, if we take the controls off, see like what we're getting versus that. So we get more compression on this side, which is why we're getting a harder edge there. That's fine. Yeah, There's the leg there. There's a bit of a like misshape going on there that we don't get here, which is good. You're always going to get some form of like issue with this, but that's what I guess what control like blend shapes are for, like corrective blend shapes, sorry. But now is the moment of truth. And that is mirroring the weights. So let's have a go. Mirror weights is somewhere here. This is the one, I think. Right. But what we want to do before we even think about clicking that is we want to try and use the box first. And we have a mirror plane of YZ. So if we literally imagine a mirror going angled like this, so this should be your Y, this is your Z, apparently. Oh, yes. So when you position it like that, imagine a mirror there. That's your mirror axis. So we'll go from here to here, right? And then you just want to check that it goes from positive to negative. It should be plus x to minus yx. Like sometimes like, that can be hard to imagine. So the easiest way to like sort of confirm that is literally create a cube, and you see how that I'm moving it onto the right, and obviously that's the positive. It's going from positive to negative, so that means that I don't want to mirror my, you know, completely non-set weights to the other side. Also, this album's done, so we're just going to switch the album before we do this. Not like that. Play toggle. Let's see, what else have we got here? We've been doing like looking through a lot of like gaming montage, so to speak. Albums. So let's see if they've got something a little bit more interesting. Let's see. Maybe strings might be a bit much. Maybe some acoustic. Let's try something like that. So-called best of 2019. I guess we can try something like that, right? Have something else like that. Okay. So now we're going from YZ, and we're going from negative to positive. The negative side is this side, the positive side is this side. And in a surface association, closest point on surface, raycast, and closest component. Usually this one seems to work, but if it's not 100%, then we can try raycast. 1-to-1 closest joint, 1-to-1 or label. We'll try 1-to-1. Have a go at that. Now, when we look at it, it should hopefully have mirrored. It doesn't look like it though. It looks like it hasn't quite behaved. I'm just going to check the bone names as well, just in case I've done something stupid. Pelvic, hip, LR, by R. Yep, okay. And I'm just going to check as well that it hasn't done something like mirrored the wrong side over. It does not. Okay, cool. However, it may be worth remembering that the hip joint is on a slightly different hierarchy to the buttock joint, so just have to bear that in mind. Hopefully it's not much of a problem. So YZ, raycast, 1-to-1, hit apply, see what happens. Let's head it over to the end, right? So I can see. Right, so that bit is the same as that bit, which is fine. These knees are fine. At least they look it. So what I think has happened is that it's been able to apply for everything except the buttock here. Now, can we attempt to do this on certain faces? So, roughly speaking, around here, perhaps. But instead of using that, we'll use closest joint or label, perhaps. Well, let's give it a try, right? So, let's see what happens. Now, when we do this, no, not quite. Raycast, closest point, try that. Nope. 1-to-1. Apply. Nope. Closest joint, 1-to-1. The closest joint on there as well. Oh. Not even gonna bother switching the tablet for that one. I'm just gonna literally use the mouse because that one's awful. Pretty sure I said acoustic. Ah, it didn't. When it said acoustic, it didn't mean like. It meant that there is some acoustic in here, not Best of 2019's acoustic songs. That's really annoying. So. No, I've got to be slightly more careful about the way that I pick albums on here. In fact, it may just be easier to pick genres this way. So, acoustic. A little bit elevatory, but not like the worst thing ever. There you go. We'll go with that for now. Try that. It might also be because I'm selecting faces and maybe I need to select polygons instead. Sorry, not vertices instead, even. Okay, try that. Okay. Not quite selecting the way that I want it to. Label, closest joint. Oh, actually, that's one thing I didn't check. It's maybe that it doesn't have that as an influence. Let's see. Oh no, it does exist. Oh yeah, I'm an idiot. Oh, I forgot. I didn't animate the other buttock. Oh dear. Right, let me get that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, okay. So obviously 0 there. Yep, that's fine. These ones might be like quite hard to see. So I think we're going to change the color of it at some point, but it's not super necessary right now. So let me just get the rotation there here. 40. There you go. Yes. Okay. Next one should be at 60. Yep. Still 40. Okay, that's fine. Next one, I think it's about 120. Yep, there we are. Back to 0. Cool. My favourite number. The worst part is that it probably mirrored perfectly from the start and I just didn't accept it. We'll remirror it. Okay, there we are. Minus 15. There we go. And as we can see, yeah, the effect is actually pretty much the exact same. Well, almost, not quite. So we're going to have to correct that now. Okay. Mirror skin weights. This time we'll go for the correct setup, which is indeed raycast and 1-to-1, I think. Apply that. Let's give that a go. Not quite the exact same. Okay. Closest point. And while we're there, normalize it. Okay, it's not exactly not exactly, but it's not exactly the worst thing. Apply. There we go. Okay, it's not exactly. I'm just gonna check I haven't done anything weird there. 40 to 40, yep. So check frame 20 while I'm there as well. 20 to 20, yep. Right, so it is just an influence issue. Okay. Maybe because I need to put closest point on surface instead. Okay. There, 0. Yep. That seems right, almost. I think there's something here where like the curving is not quite the same. I just want to check some bone influences that we do have here. This one seems okay. This one. This one. Oops, wrong one. One versus the hip there. They seem. Take normalize off for a sec. Mirror again. There's just something about it that seems like it accelerates faster on the right side, but. And yeah, like that seems quite different to me. But oh, hang on. Ah, I see. This thing has been animated slightly differently. Hang on. Like it's a little further down. Okay. There might be a parenting issue here. So even though this is moving, this is not. Okay. I think I've worked out what it was. Let me check this bone. This has... Okay. Check the origin for this. This origin is this hip, okay? And this origin is that hip. Okay. I move it down, yeah, that's right. Ah, there's a double parenting on this one, I think. Okay, no worries. That's why. So then, this should only have one influence though. Because I can see quite clearly that that bone is being affected by more than one thing. Alright, so at least it's not a mirroring issue. We just need to find what's causing this problem. Just go ahead and remove that for a second. Okay, so now it's not affected by anything. Okay, let's take this and not that. So we're going to pull on the master skeleton now. Although obviously there'll be a slight mess. Well, let's just have a look. The master skeleton version of this is being moved way more. Okay. We're just going to undo to put the constraint back on. Since it's not a problem with the slave skeleton. Okay, that's fine. Hide that. Get the master skeleton back. Look for the control here. Have a look. So this has Nerve Circle 1, Group 4. Ah, I see. There's a constraint here. What is this thing? Check that. Yeah, that doesn't exist on the other bone. So this might have a problem. So we're just going to just straight up delete this bit. Or not, apparently. Okay. How weird. So, I'll move this. I can see that that moves more. So, this group 4 waiting on this bone should not exist. But for whatever reason it does. I'm just going to try deleting the history on it. Just for a sec. Try deleting... Break this connection perhaps, or delete it entirely. That did not work. You can also see there's an output to bind pose. What? That should not have an output to bind pose. I'm not sure where it's got that from. So, okay. Let's delete that. Bind pose. Oh, those ones do as well anyway. Weird. Oh, whatever. Okay. Regardless. Constrainer, constraint, parent constraint, added back on. So now these two should move normally. They should move at the same time. There we go. No idea what happened there, but at least it's all working perfectly now, and they are perfectly mirrored. As always, it turns out it's something else along the chain, you know? It's always something else related to your problem. Regardless. Good stuff. So. Yes. Most of this stream has been related to the buttocks of this character. Thank you, Jamar, and thank you for joining. I might have made that heal a little thick. Oh well. Okay. Right, so we've done that much. So now let's move on to the lower leg. No, we've kind of all begun, so to speak, for the actual skinning process. And we're gonna try and get as much done as we can. So we've just mirrored this sort of top section. This the thighs basically, and the butt. So that much is basically done. And what we're going to do now, we've done this bit. We just need to move on to the legs down here. So like that. We're just going to check from this side as well. So it seems okay. Okay. Now this bit. See, obviously this bit's going to need to be smoothed. Just going to lightly apply some and then just smooth it out. And then obviously mirror all this stuff over after. Let's get some controls back up. We're going to need to make some new animations. So we've got all that. Let's take just these two now. Take this along a little bit, sorry. Back to about 210, something like that. And hit our magic 0 key. There. Yes, on that. gonna say about maybe another 30 frames there. There we go. And we're just gonna start playing around with the controls that we've got. So let's see. We can see already that there is an issue here, so it's fine. Let's have a look. What is assigned to that? Presumably it's like some stray vertex or something. There's no weird influence. As you can see, yeah, there's the buttock is for whatever reason pulling on that. Obviously that's not going to fly, but at the same time you can't just like use the replace. We're working in an additive workflow here, so we want to make sure that we just straight up remove it. Could have been added by accident. Just going to check that there isn't any on the other side either. No, that's fine. And now that we know that this slot is basically zeroed out, we're just going to lock it. And while we're there, we'll lock the other one. Hopefully they should be zeroed out. I don't think I see anything with regards to that, so that's fine. This ankle part really needs way more over here, like way more influence. So obviously heels being hard surface objects, they basically have 1.0. Oops. Let's see. Something else. No, actually, not even that. Oh, there's a lot of these sort of instrumental versions. Oh wow, a song called Pretender? Well, it's not used in the other version of Pretender, so there we go. That's worth looking for something else. Let's see. Maybe some soft house, I don't know. Let's try this one. Alright, smooth that over. It's coming a little too far towards the top though. We're just going to push some influence back. And then smooth this way. One thing I want to do, because I can see quite clearly that this and this, these should not be influenced like that. So I'm just going to take this toe piece here and just straight up flood it. Simply because, like, just to erase everything that this had. And then, of course, there's this bit at the very end here that should have more influence, although that's a bit weird. Why is it not selecting it? And again, a little strange. Let's check this controller while I'm there. Okay, this here. Save that there, and while I'm there, no, it's already zeroed out. It's fine. Simple enough to zero out anyway. After you're posing, is it going to have a stretch texture? Possibly. That's the goal, is to prevent that. So hopefully, yeah, you're going to find that when you pull on the you know, all of the faces, like, it is going to stretch the texture. That is simply the nature of it. So it's a really fun process trying to hide that. You know, it just involves a lot of smoothing, really, and hoping that people don't really notice. So, like, let's try bending this up. Okay, maybe not that one. Oh, right, yes, I know why that's happening, because those didn't have any influence. I see. Right. Let me just close that like that. Could make it a little bit more natural, but for now we'll go with this. Okay, that's a bit extreme as well. Sometimes like going a bit more extreme can help, because then the ideal pose should work. In terms of fixing like stretch textures, like when it comes to that kind of thing, it's just this, like, the more polish you've got, the better, I guess. But also try not to stretch it too far. It's a tricky one, I'm afraid, but it is just the way that works. There's not a lot you can really do about it, at least in terms of this sort of posing, you know, basically. Sadly. Let's try and smooth this out. Now, the way this should have more influence there. Oh, yeah. Here's my pen a little. There we go. We're just gonna allow more influence this way. Now, why has this still got that much influence there? Is it because I've locked these two? Let's just try unlocking them and then see. And while we're at it, flood it. Flood that here. Just check that I've actually got that selected. Yes, it is. It is selected and it exists. I'm afraid you'll find that like if you with the current settings that I've got, if you swear, it gets held for review. Not that I actually mind swearing, but because it's just that like I'm lazy and I just want like spam removed. Not that I get any. So yeah. The character's messed up on the right elbow. Yeah, it's just that's Joy. You're using ZBrush, right? Is this actually selected? Nope, it did not select it. What have I done? I don't know why it's there. Yes, there we go. That's better. That makes more sense now. That's why it wasn't working, because it didn't quite select the right bone. So it was trying to apply influence to a bone that didn't have it. That was really stupid. Oh, okay. Yeah, ZBrush. I've never done it before in ZBrush. Like I detest trying to do it in ZBrush so much because, you know, it's just weird. But I guess like when you're doing it in ZBrush, have you got the texture applied as well, or are you just doing it kind of blind? Blind. I think the best thing you can do for yourself there is in ZBrush you apply the textures, and yeah, it's a bit of work because you have to then actually flip the Y in ZBrush on the UV texture, I think, just because ZBrush is backwards like that. But if you apply like the base diffuse texture, or like the color texture, that'll let you see the stretching that's going on. But saying that, the most important thing is the actual like pose itself is correct and the deformation is correct. If that's not correct, it doesn't matter whether the texture is stretched or not, it will look bad. So it's just that you have to make absolutely sure that the texture itself, sorry, the pose itself is correct. This is like the ultimate test if it's working or not. Wow. Let me just select this one. No, it's not selecting it. First. Yeah, there. So it's going to be around there. And then we'll... normally a bit easier than this. Yeah, so if the poses are looking alright, then you just want to try and adjust the texture part, and this, like the stretch, is pretty much an inevitability. Just this again. Lower leg twist. Ah, that's been applied wrong. Or has it? Ankle, lower leg. Oh, hang on. I think it's because these two have not been added as an influence. Okay, I see what I've done. Alright, so this is simple enough. It's like these 4 bones. That's why I was having that weird issue. And just make sure that's selected. Skin, edit influences, add influence, bang. Paint that. Now when I select it, there we go. That was done. While I'm there for the other side, make sure that's not locked. So I should have foot all there. But I don't have this one. Yep, that needs to be added. Add that one. There we go. Grab this one. First, before I do any of that, I'm just going to flood this again. So it's going to look a bit weird. But we just need to make it return to like frame 0. I don't know where the hell that was. Yeah. 210 if I remember right. And so I'm just going to flood this to remove every like weird small value assigned to something that shouldn't be there. Okay, now that I've got that. Okay, this bit and then this bit. So this part, toe here, should have... Oh, that's a bit weird. Has it got a rotation? It shouldn't. Possibly. Let me check that reverse foot there. No, that should be fine. Okay. Maybe it said it shouldn't have any after all. Alright, so forget that bit. Select this bit instead. What? Now that's a bit weird, because that shouldn't be rotating at all. Did I even select the right one? I just go to 0. Okay, that's weird. Okay, clearly something's been rotated that shouldn't be. It's weird. Nah, I haven't got any weird values somewhere. No, they're all zeroed. It's weird. That's very weird. It's definitely 0 when it was bound. Oh, I think I know maybe why. Oh, hang on. Was it perhaps when I added the influence, it was a non-zero value? Right, okay, I think I know what I did. But now I don't know if I'll be able to undo far enough. See if we can. Probably not, though. Nope. Rip. Okay, fine. Alright, we've got a way. Simple enough. This influence, flood it again. Dear. I want to be absolutely sure that I've cleared everything from this. Okay, then we'll give that a go. So save that. Now what I want to do is remove these two, and for good measure, we'll move the other two as well. And remove this influence and then add them back in on frame 0. So edit influences, remove influence. Okay, so now when we look at it and we look here, right, it returns nothing. Should do. Yep, it returned nothing. Good. Okay. Now we're on frame 0 for definite. Go ahead and select our bones again. Right, then add the influence again. Right, so we're on frame 0. Now when we look at it, right, okay. Now when we actually paint it on, like this influence, paint it on. Hey, there we go. Oh, problem solving. Right, there you go. Okay, back on we go. So now we just paint that back on this way. Right back up to that frame. There you go. And yeah, it just moves much better now. Okay, brilliant. So 200 something or other. But we'll start slower around here. Okay, and then start feeding this back. Although it would be nice if the cursor was working. Ah, it's locked. There you go. Yeah, Naisu is right. Fucking real-time problem solving here. It's a very technical thing, isn't it? It's just kind of so much problem solving. So many weird things happen, and you know, like it is indeed something that you just sort of have to work out, and it's usually something that you've done that causes it. So okay. Right. As I start seeing it, I'm just gonna smooth it along, but also like share the influence through. Now it's high heels, so you don't get a lot of like you don't get much movement like this. So this is really playing to the extreme. But by kind of like preparing for the extreme, I think that it helps with the rest of it. So then when you do something normal, it looks fine anyway. So there's not this one. This one. Ah, didn't know that. Well, that's a new shortcut I've learned. Right. Moving it, well, lower values. Just gonna smooth it. Down a bit. We might as well have like a little bit of influence on the top there. And then of course the curvature here. Because like as this arcs, this should curve inwards, so you need a fair amount of influence from the ankle joint but at the same time, there should still be influence from the ball joint here. Although, truthfully, there isn't really enough topology here to try and make that much use of it. So, slight oversight. We could always divide here and here if we really want to, but is it really worth it? Like, you're not going to, like, zoom in on the back of her foot, I think. I mean, unless you want to do that. Weirdo. Get a little bit on the there as well. So now if we play with that a little more, so there's like the absolute extreme of that. Now we adjust a little bit more. Select the art. I want to try and like keep that curvature going. Alright, so now when we go ahead and do a little land there, push through. Move a little more. Make sure to smooth it after. I want it blocky. And it may also be worth having a little bit of influence on the toe here as well. Because this, I think, will rotate. Nah, not really. It was worth it. It was worth a thought. Just to get like a little bit of like follow through. I don't know if that's like a real term in animation. But hey, there might be something where we do actually rotate this joint for a little bit of like wiggle or something. But clearly that's not happening right now. So. If we give it a bit more influence, it might happen. And then we may maybe make a control for it for like flow through. Be kind of a small thing. Let's try that. Now if we rotate it, what happens? Yeah, there's like a little bit of like follow through or something that could be done there. Not something we're going to use for this character, but hey, it might be something we try out another time. But okay, that seems good to me. On this part anyway. Now we need to correct this bit. Or try to. What we have is actually quite alright, but it could be better, I think. Where what we have is that this leg comes down but then does a weird bend. That can't happen. Regardless of how stylized that is, I don't think that will fly. So just need to try and get it so that this cut and this bulges out. Maybe. However, most of this will probably be dependent on the actual model that we've got. So, but one thing we can do is try and like push this out so that the thickness is still there. Plus, also, it will make this like elegant sort of curve like that. Actually, that's alright. And again, we're dealing with a very extreme pose, so it's not going to look like that when we actually go to animate, or pose, rather. You know, it's never going to be this extreme. Give it some of that influence back. Ah, thank you, Maya. Get some of that back. I'm hoping to at least get the legs and the arms done today. Hopefully. Well, it's always a bit of work, but it's nice and like slow kind of work. It's not super technical. Yeah, I think that works. So we've got like this sort of curve this way, then S is in like that. So the only thing that we've got to reflect back, reflect is to try and get it to appear like that on the back side. At the same time, got to remember that it's not going to fly if it's too extreme. So perhaps like when we judge it slightly more realistically, so something more like this, we can see that it's not that bad. And we can just sort of push it a little bit more perhaps. Yeah, do your best. Let's see, what's my stretching like? Not too bad. Then again, this doesn't move that much, so... There is that bit there, though, that I don't quite like, but, you know, the lower poly it is, and the, you know, the fewer bones there are, then the more stretching you're going to get. So you just kind of try to keep it to a minimum, if possible. But... obviously in ZBrush it's a little bit different. You know, you don't really have bones so much as you have to contend with the move tool. I really want to try and get an S shape from this if possible. Maybe even cheat a little bit here. You know, where the ankle is like influencing the top there. Even though it really shouldn't, but see if we can cheat a little over here as well. So that's in. Let me pull this out a bit. This seems like we're going to have to make a slight compromise here. But I guess that's what corrective blend shapes are for. Okay, for compromises, it's not going to be too bad. Smooth it out. Has to be a lot higher actually while doing that. Smooth it. A little bit more there. Something like that. Go on this more as well. Right. Not that much of a fan of this one. Let's see, is there anything slightly different? Yeah, try that. Let's check that. Yeah, that doesn't seem too bad. So that's going straight down like that. And the front part curves out. This curves a little bit. That's not too bad. Check this bit. Just check that there's nothing weird on the hard surface heel there. It looks all like it's set to 1.0, so that's fine. Okay. Alright then. Now, let's go right ahead and go back to 0. Save that. And simply mirror over as before. Mirror that across. Back over to here. Check the... Yep. Not sure why I thought I was trying to convert an ink to a float, but there we go. So that's 0 there. 0. Check that frame. That's Oh, derp, it's the wrong one. Hit the frame again. 45. Frame. Frame is 240, 45. There. That seems good. Hey. Alright. So now the next thing to try out is, and we don't have to spend too long on it if it's already correct, basically rotate that. Yep, that seems fair. Go ahead and move that. That aspect is fine. Heel pivot. Okay. And we rotate like that. That seems fine. Banking. We just zero out that animation first. Yeah. Try the banking again. There were certain compromises that probably made up with that. This, I think, is somewhere where maybe it might be worth applying a little bit more paint here. On the sides. And while we're at it, it will need to be animated too, so here. About 260, zero that out. Maybe do the same for the other side. And then 280. Take the banking value and go something like, at the moment 72 the top, no, 100% is the top. That's like the absolute extreme of like crazy banking, which doesn't seem realistic, so say something like that for now, and then we'll go to the other side and say what the most realistic inner banking is. Clearly it's not like that, but something like that for now. Let's have a go. Okay, so we're just going to try adding on a bit more value here. See? That needs more influence lower down, more smoothing as you come up. More smoothing over there as well. But at the same time, you need it to keep a certain amount of thickness. Not like that. Very careful. Flick that around a little. That seems okay, actually. A little more influence on here overall, pulling it. Now we'll just check again on the previous part. But it's all well and good to skin one animation and go, alright, that bit's done. Then you skin the next part that affects the same vertices, and then you go back, and then it's all ruined. You know, that kind of thing. Which is, of course, not fun. A little bit more there. And sometimes you find that you have to like reset the tool if you change the animation. It's just a little unfortunate side effect, but nothing you can really do about it other than just sort of tell it to sort of reassign and go again. Head here, pull this further, try and maintain some of that. Smooth it a bit as well. How long have we been in it? Apparently 2 hours. May also be worth influencing some of the top there. Not a lot. Very lightly. We're just trying to subtly change it a little. Like, very small amounts. Because it's not that this happens in real life, but that we're just trying to make the image seem correct. Because truthfully, you can't really bank on like super tall shoes like this. But the option is there, you know, for stylized purposes. So we'll just try and make it seem as correct as possible. Again, not forgetting that the other part still needs to, right? Still needs to adapt to it. A little, not too much. When we've done it, like that, I think it's creating a much better image now. We're actually allowing the ankle to influence the leg here, which is creating better curvature. Even though it's not realistic, and obviously legs don't move that way, that little bit of sort of play that this ankle is allowed to influence on the upper leg is helping to create a better sense of curving, particularly with like tiptoeing and stuff. Remember to smooth it and keep it very, very low. And just influence some of this back. There you are. Alright, like that. And then banking. That seems believable to me. Because like the actual like the top part of this boot is not necessarily as flexible as in fact it probably would be pretty inflexible, but it's better than like a cut in effect where like it's either is or isn't. And if we look over on the other side as a reference to what it was before, right, and then we look at this, these curves look kind of the curves seem to look intentional, and yeah, it's super, like, it's not a pose that you want to be doing at all. But when the character does go to do it, it's going to look intentional, not like super painful to look at, I hope. Like the influence here. Okay, and probably a bit more sort of upward movement. Maybe not that much, but a little bit more upward movement going on here. Obviously, this whole part has to keep its form because it's hard surface. Yeah. That's not quite. Try and curve that in a little as well. This bit here. Smooth that as well. It's got to be slightly careful as well of this intersection where that is misbehaving. Just like that. Pump that out. And also the thickness of the boot at the top So gotta be slightly careful because it's beginning to like sag in due to the influence from, or rather not enough influence in this case, from the lower ankle. I don't care too much about like the super inner parts here, but I do care about the thickness from the top. At least enough to try and make sure it looks correct. Try and keep it consistent. It doesn't need to be like 100% like full on corrected, but it does need to at least resemble it. That's a lot better now. Okay, alright. I think that's good enough for our outer banking. Like a little bit maybe here that I might want to adjust, but like that. Smooth that a bit as well. A little curving, just a little bit, not too much. Okay, so push that a bit more. Okay, that seems good for our outer banking. Try the inner banking, but by virtue of fixing the outer banking, most of this should be okay and correct. Well, I say correct, correct for, tall shoes like this anyway. Most of this seems okay, nothing too offensive. Just a little bit of movement there. That seems okay. Yep. Obviously, it's not a pose that we'd be having her do very often, but like that kind of thing. But at least it works. So if we do need to have them bank like that, it's not gonna look too bad. All right, let's just check knee twist as well while we're there, since this is actually important as well. So knee twisting here. Let's go ahead and take that frame. Out there, zero that stuff out there. So another 50, maybe 30 frames perhaps. play with some knee twist here. So and the extremes of this knee twist mean that the top part of this boot doesn't play too nicely with it. If we go to 365 over there, go the other way. The other way isn't so bad. Okay. The only problem with this is that this is still affecting vertices that we've been literally just now have been working good for our purposes. So it's just more adjustment, right? And checking back to make sure that it doesn't ruin things that we've worked on there. Thankfully, it's just around this sort of area, I think. But we'll have to check the banking just to make sure that it doesn't. That we're playing within good bounds. So. This may also be because most of this is assigned to this knee twist bone. Maybe I was right to have 2 bones, actually. I had 2 bones up here before where another one controlled sort of from there, but I took it out. Maybe I should have put it back. Oh well, it's done now. So, you know, not a lot we can really do about that. Just gonna try and straighten it out a little bit. But again, you wouldn't have extreme knee twists outwards like that anyway, so when you go to do more normal poses, it's going to be fine. A little bit of smoothing there. Okay. There's a little bit of play around here that I'm not liking too much, but that's also most likely because it also was used for the banking. We're just going to check that the banking of it didn't suffer. It didn't really suffer, but that's okay. Oh, did my battery go? No. But my mouse's battery went. Okay. Smooth that. I think that's fine. Like, we're not really going to be doing much in terms of that anyway, so that's probably okay. Maybe a little bit more here actually. Let's smooth it. Check the bottom area here. Okay. Pull up a bit more on here. A little bit more up there. Okay, that seems fine to me. Alright, move this to frame 0 and do our mirroring. Save all that, don't want to lose any of that. That basically is the legs done. But I find that the easiest part, but it's, at the same time it's not, that doesn't mean it isn't going to take long. But a lot of this is going to take long, so yeah. Right, mirror that over, and let's try and do the crazy dance again. Okay, and the other thing to check before we declare this done is to go on frame 0, grab one of the legs and just start moving it around. So with respect to the other part, right, I shouldn't be getting anything weird going on. Let's just... That seems fine to me. Alright, we're going to call the legs done. So... Ooh, good stuff. Alright, so easy way. Take all of our controls off. Do this and then throw it like that. Alright, good. Try this again. Try it again. Oh dear. Now, delete all of that. But obviously, that didn't delete everything. We've got a whole bunch more objects to select. So, control layer, select objects. Yeah, do this. Delete, delete, delete. There we go. I should delete everything now. No, it did not. Alright, fine. Go. Now just gotta this. There is also the question of like the hip control, but that seems fine. But like by virtue of being correct with the other parts, this part is gonna behave no different than the other, so that's fine. Bullet controls there. Then delete them. I'm not going to delete frame 0 though, because that's neutral, and I don't mind that a neutral key is there. Okay, what's we've done the legs. That's like one mesh out of a lot of stuff. So, okay, so proxy geometry then. Just because I didn't give any explanation on what I was doing with proxy geometry, so I'm just gonna do a quick one here. Say this apron frill. Okay, so these two then. All right. Okay, maybe not the apron frill. Maybe the shoulder frill, actually. Makes more sense. Shoulder frill. There. So what I've got here is I have one of these that is full. It is the normal double-sided frill, and then on the proxy, which I'll just quickly add a layer for, actually. That should show up. It does not. Ah, I see why. There we are. And then unhide. Hide these ones though. Right, so this. So there's two proxy geometry things. Oh, whoops. Did I do all of that while the chat window was not even ready? That was so dumb. Shareable. I didn't even think to look. Wow, that was really bad. There we go. Did I seriously do all of that without looking and checking that the chat wasn't working? Oh dear. There you go. Alright, okay, back to what I was trying to do. So, okay, so I've got this piece of like cloth frill here, and this is actually single-sided, but we know that the normal one is not single-sided. Find the bloody thing. can't I see it? There you go. Oh, there you are. So the normal one is double-sided, but the regular one is single-sided. So what the goal is that they're both joined up already, but the single-sided one is the one that we're going to actually be painting our weights on. And then what we'll do is that we'll take the single-sided frill and then copy the weights over to the double-sided frill. So then the double-sided frill is going to have most of its weights copied for it, despite the fact that it's double-sided. But painting double-sided is a pain, so hopefully this should result in a decent mesh. So I'm just going to go ahead and rename this there to like single-sided or something like that. Or single-sided proxy. Okay. And I'm going to just hide the double-sided geometry again. So this one should be a double-sided here. Yep. That one, that one. So these two can be brought up again. There we go. Okay, brilliant. And we can unhide the rest of this skeleton. No easy way to do it though. There we go. Alright, next bit. So we know that these legs are working perfectly. In terms of like the, I guess what you might call like the collision with the skirt, we're not going to bother with that kind of thing. This is more just for posing, so we're not focused on how that works. Like, physics and stuff. Okay, so let's see what we can do next. Perhaps we'll try the skirt next. So just to try and do some like proxy geometry stuff. Okay, so starting off, we need the skirt, like the actual single-sided one, and that's basically what we'd be working with exclusively. So we can go right ahead and just hide the real one. Select this slot. Skirt's easily the hardest part, I think, of this mesh. The next hardest part is the hair, I reckon. Skirt root. We don't need this apron part here, although we might need to tell it to have no influence on this skirt though. Alright, so the objective here is to basically make sure that this slot is all working. We also need to make sure that the controls for the skirt are visible as well. So this one and this one. And then of course the individual controls within it. Whoops. Here. Okay. Whoops. Is that not copyright? No, I did. Alright. So now we see the controls and we see the skirt itself along with this bone. Although really there should be the root bone here as well. We need that. Just check if we've got everything selectable here. Just check that. Right, everything. That and then the root. Just need the root. And then hide everything else that doesn't plate isn't required. That, and there should be a spine. Yep. Okay, brilliant. Save that. Right, and we'll just check the stuff here. We can see immediately that there's an apron part here that's just not needed at all. So, simple stuff. Find the apron bone. Not feeling so good about this song. Let's see. That's something else. I highly doubt picking anything metal here is going to work, but why don't we try it anyway? Hello, Michael Scotton. Nice to see you on the stream. Right. Exit display. Crap. There we go. Alright, so let's get this proxy skirt rigged. And see what we can do. Oh wait, yes. Need to remove the apron bone on here. So this lot. Thank you. Yeah, we've finished all of, well, most. There's only like the face controls to go, but every other control has been made. We're just skinning right now. We've just finished the legs, and I'm just moving on to this skirt here, which is adventurous to say the least. There's edit influences, remove influence. There we go. So what I've just done here is that the apron was affecting the skirt, so we had to remove it. And there's another influence we need to add back on here, which is the root bone, so that when the skirt turns, it doesn't. There are certain vertices that won't be affected. How am I feeling about deadline for rookies? Hopefully I'll make it. I think there's a good 9 days left, so that's 7, 8, 9. I've booked a few days off. I've booked a few holiday days off work, just so to try and make it. I'm hoping to get as much done as I can today, and of course tomorrow, next day, and so on. So, and what I'm hoping for is that by 27th I'll have a render in time for review. So, yeah, hopefully it'll go okay. Thank you. What was I about? Oh yeah, root bone. Yes. So let's find the root bone here. Select that and that. It should be skin, add influence, simple as that. Alright, so we've got the root there, unlock it. Yeah, and pretty simple. Just paint that on. Turn that off on there. Yes. I am hoping it is a solid plan. I'm hoping it's going to work out. So, yeah. Oh, thank you. We'll see about that. It wasn't so epic last session when it wasn't even there, I'm afraid. It's such a long process, this. Oh, that is like a... That is something you would expect in Doom, wow. I appreciate your review. Okay. Let me just quickly mirror this over. Hopefully this one is set correctly as well. Check. Yeah, seems so. Yeah, we've tried some Metalon Epidemic, so we'll see how that goes as well. Tend to flick around between genres. Makes sense, right? Rigging a skirt is practically like boss mode anyway. So okay, so now that we've got that, let's try and get some animation going so that we can actually skin this thing. So to start with, let's go ahead and take our controls and throw them on, throw keyframes on 0, and then at roughly 60, just do a little bit of like, maybe we'll manipulate like one of them to start with. Okay. Maybe 2. Or 3. Okay. Sort of try and get the what we'll try and get it to do is to try and follow the bones as much as possible. So something like that to start with, and then we'll go to about 120 and kind of move it in. Try and move that in like that. Oh wow, this does make me want to play Doom. I've got about halfway through on Nightmare difficulty. Does every cool looking model have this amount of bones? No idea. Most cloth simulation in games tends to be done with, literally, most cloth tends to be done with cloth simulation, but the problem that I have is that it's quite specific with the shapes and stuff. Plus, like like the hair on the character, that does need to be done with bones. I didn't find these to begin with. That was dumb. Let me do that now. 0 that. This slot as well needs to be 0'd. And keyframed. There we go. Alright, so now we'll go ahead and just move it around. Okay. Alright, great. So now we just need to try and paint the weights on this thing, and this is going to be the hardest part of this, because clearly it's not going to work when we do like the spin. Not so into aggressive metal like that, actually. The instrumental of it is actually quite good, I just don't like that. Alright, let's try some, enough experimenting with that then. Let's see what else have we got here. Let's try some Bossa Nova. I don't know. I'm just going to smooth this stuff out on these bones. Right. It's a bit tranquil. So cultured. Oh, you just wait. I imagine if YouTube didn't like copy strike you, there'd be so much culture on this. It is pretty classy, actually. Sorry. These little bits at the bottom here as well. hopefully we're not going to have this much of like a stretch between these two uh, bones, but I'm just sort of preparing for that. Ah. Thank you, Maya. So what I'm going to do here is I want to try and pull from the next set of bones and add some influence and then just smooth them out. And it's going to take a lot of experimentation with this one, but hey, skinning is the most boring process of this, so, you know. Well, hopefully we get a lot out of it. That's the hope that I've got for it. Whether it's just learning or that it actually makes for a good project, we'll see. Also, Mohammed, thank you for tuning into the stream. Much appreciated. Here, and as we can see, there's way too much that the skirt route here is taking. Like, it should be affecting more, a lot lower rather than lower down rather than what it's currently doing. So we're going to take the route here and extend this out. It can be quite difficult to see what you're doing when you've got the bones visible, so sometimes it's just worth hiding them for a bit. Come back. Could have just done it with the layers that I had. That would make sense. And I'm only going to bother, you know, doing one side. Everything else I'll just mirror over, which is great. Oops. Keep accident. Yeah. I wonder, does this work? Not like this. Try again. There we go. So I just like enabled the game mode on the keyboard that I have just to stop the misclicking on the start menu. Who'd have thought? I'd never need those kinds of things normally, but there we go. Don't want too much influence from this bottom part to this part here, so I'm just going to paint some more over it. One there. Let's try moving some of this more. Hang on. Delete that actually. Oops. Didn't quite get it. Here, over here. There's a top bit over there as well. balancing it. There. Yeah. Go to 60. Pull that around. Pulling that in this way. Go to around 120 here and set a key for this, like gigantic control. This control just basically moves every single individual controller on the bottom level. And then when you move this around, it should move them. Of course, it doesn't because these are individual keyframes. So we're just going to need to change that. I need to 180. Go ahead and give it that. Oh. Clearly something on it, but shouldn't be. There we are. There we go. There we go. So now you see, like, when I move, when I rotate this round, this bit seems a lot better now. Try the other way as well. Seems a lot smoother on this one part that we've done. So you can see how many of these there are. So it's going to be a fun time. But one thing we can do is if we mirror it, it should then look as good as it does, but on the other side, right? So we've done this one. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to go. And I say done, we've done it to a preliminary level, right? So it's not super done yet, but hey, we'll see. But hey, this is going a lot better than some other skirt rigging that I've done. So, was it worth it to do this, like, control? Yeah, I'd say so. In fact, it might be worth making a control, like this a mid control that controls this slot, maybe. But it's already influenced by this sort of midpoint to there, so perhaps not. But regardless. Lower. Yeah. No, I appreciate you checking in and seeing how I'm doing. Thank you so much, Michael. I'll have a look at what your project is as well. I can't remember at the moment, but I will have a look and see how you're doing. But I'm sure it's going great. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, so this bit, next part. So we've done this bit, we'll move on to the next one. Most of it was just smoothing, so that helps. Just sort of begin with smoothing and see how we do it. Do a 360 pog. Yeah, like I've only recently been trying to understand Twitch memes, like Pog and Kappa and things like that. Mission failed successfully. I barely even understand it at all. Other than those images are actually, you know, they're linked to a particular image. Oh god. It's a funny one. Smooth that. Well, I've got to be really careful that I don't accidentally destroy the work that I've done on the previous one. That's kind of the case anyway, isn't it? Alright. Over there. And then we can see that there's some stuff that's going to need to be, like, painted out. A lot of learning to do about Twitch then. Oh yeah. It's a strange place. So what I'm going to do here is just sort of basically paint out where this was influencing over this side, which was just weird. And there's I see that not everything is necessarily added on. So we've got to be really careful when we go to add this influence in. Definitely make sure the frame's 0, save before we do this. Wide pair. I'm assuming that's... Wait, no, that might not be. Oh, okay. Wide peepo happy. Okay. Weird. Okay. I need to add all these influences on. So what influences here am I missing? So look over here. So everything with 5 on it should be on, and if it's not on, that's a problem. Right, okay, so we found skirt 5-4. I'm just going to get a notepad. At least I would. And so 5-4L. Which by extension will probably mean that the the version on the right is also not going to show up. Yep. So it is 5-4R. Hopefully it's not too many. 6-5 is okay. 7-5 is okay. 8-5 is okay. 9-5 is okay. Okay, brilliant. So I only have 2 to correct. So that's easy enough. Fine, boom. 5-4. Here. 5-5 and 5-5 there. Skirt. Add that influence in, and there we go. So that's why that was influencing this part, because this joint, well, for whatever reason, didn't heat map correctly. So, good job, joint, I guess. Save that. Now it should work. Select the influence and brilliant, it works. It's just got nothing now, so go ahead and give it some. Once again, smooth it out. Just like this. Go ahead and paint over that, smooth it. Select that, give it some back. sort of back and forth game of you know, giving back and taking from the other joints, basically. Oh, you don't have to watch the whole thing through, but you can kind of skip through for things that are interesting. But thank you so much for coming. I'm hoping that, like, when this project's done, we'll have something more interesting than skinning. But skinning is just, you know, one of those things. Most people tend to use, like, Maximo anyway. But I just wanted to try and, like, skin it properly. But yeah, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate that. Fuck. There you go. Control. Like this one, steal that back. There. Smooth. Right. Go up an elevation. Smooth. Look here as well. Check that. Yep, that definitely does not need to be over there, so I'm just gonna kind of try and steal from it. Okay. Now if we scrub through a little bit on our little timeline, where the keyframes actually are. Okay, so some of this makes more sense now. That bit there does not, even though that's the front. Yeah, that is the front, but it's not quite got the influence that it should. So I'm just gonna steal from that a little. Have a look where this keyframe is. Let's try and tilt that a bit as well to make it a bit more interesting. Then go ahead and do like an opposite. Nice one. Hope it works out. Something like that. Little bit of proximity with this one, but gonna do our best with it. On smooth anyway. that. Oh, this is the fun part. This is where, like, this is where all of the intersections and stuff happen. Yeah, this will be very interesting to resolve. So this part here, so this is where, like, all of the geometry becomes really tight. So we have to be really careful not to accidentally allow it to overlap and intersect, because then it will become really ugly. And even though there's an apron in front of it, it's just not good practice. But this is also where our blend limit is being tested. I've put it on 5. I could have put it higher, but I put it on 5 because it just seemed to make more sense. But maybe that's an oversight here. There are so many different parts that are going to overlap here. But, you know, control. Here. Flatten that a bit. We do start hitting the blend limit pretty quickly here. Try something else. Try something else. Okay. Oops. there's some stuff here that's locked. That's why. That was me wondering why it wasn't doing anything. Alright. Alright, set to frame 0. Let's mirror our weights again. So we've done well, I say we've done. We've applied some stuff to this area. Mirror across. Let's see what we get. Some good behavior that we've got on this side now. Some room for improvement as well. Hmm. I didn't eat any snacks. Looks like I didn't need them after all. Hmm. Try. Mirror this across, see what we get. It's not the worst thing ever, but it needs improvement. But it's way better than what we started with, right? So That's the way that compresses in, I like. So yeah, just that area needs a lot of improvement now. But it's better than what we started with, so. Hmm. I think we'll go on for, I think, 20 more minutes. That seems about the kind of time where this skirt will be finished, and then we'll call it a day for streaming. So mostly because like I'm leaning my arm on my desk, which is then like pronating a little bit. So definitely needs a break with that. But we'll do that in about, hopefully, basically when this is finished. This skirt anyway. It looks like it's nearly done, to be honest. So this went a lot smoother than I thought it would. Also, because like it will start to get late. Well, while we're waiting for the last 20 minutes, let's go ahead and switch the songs. Something. Let's try. I don't know. Give this a try. something a little euphoric. You know, reaching the end of this particular part. We're really close to finishing this bit. Actually, it's surprising. Hmm. Try that. We're coming up to time anyway, so. But hopefully we'll have something that's workable. Right, okay. I'm just going to take the phones out. Whoops. Okay, it's not too bad. There's a little bit of uncertainty over here, but it could just be the way that it's positioned. And like, if you go too far, obviously you're gonna get priests. But this is not bad. But what we've got, that's not bad at all. Zero that out for a sec, so that I can kind of more freely rotate it around. Okay, so as a test then, go ahead and just zero that. Well, actually, we need to be on frame 0 anyway. Do this. Save that. So now we test the actual proxy part, passing the weight that it has over to its effective, full version. So this is the part that is a bit interesting to do, because of course the actual mess it up a bit. Also, yeah, there we are. Just select these two only. You'll notice that there's this whole other part that's attached to it. Now we could either detach them and then 100% route these two to that. We could do that. That's not much of a problem. Or we can copy the weights over. But then you have a problem where, if for whatever reason you need to change something on the bottom, you then have to update the proxy, and that then has to copy its weights over to the other mesh, and then you probably lose everything you'll do on this top section, so slightly careful about that. It might even still be worth dispatching it, but well, let's just have a look. Alrighty, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm about to finish anyway, but yes, thank you so much. I'll hope to see you later. Alright. Anyways, let's try copying the weights over. Let's see. To torso. I don't remember the order in which this is done. On the closest point on surface, closest bone, go 1 to 1. Closest point 1 to 1, and we'll see how that goes. Let's just save first before we do it, and let's see, copy. I think it's source and then target. I'm not 100% sure though, so I guess we're just gonna have to see. Hit apply and see what happens. Something was copied. Just move this over and see what happens. Ooh, okay. Not quite what I expect. Although, in fairness, the joint influences may also have an issue with that. So let's just see. How many pieces of skirt did it have? Only 1, 2, 3, 4. Ah, yeah. Okay, so that's one reason why that's not working. The other reason, of course, being that there's a lot more going on. Alright, hang on. Go again. Righty. It may still be worth then splitting those two up. Even if it means that we have to rebind, it's probably worth splitting those two just to do that. But I think we'll do that off stream, and we'll resolve this after. So, alrighty. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much for the comments in the chat. For next stream tomorrow, because I can't, I don't have time to basically go over and play what was basically an hour of Yomawari. It's just going to be more League, so hopefully we'll do better this time. And then hopefully after this deadline, which is 1st of June, we'll move into actually doing, Yomawari properly. Alrighty. And then as for future streams regarding this project, hopefully we'll have we definitely will have more progress done on the skiing side of things. It's just that I don't know whether it would be a milestone stream or another daily whole day stream, but it's more likely to be a milestone stream as we're getting close to the deadline. Alright then, thank you so much for tuning in, and hope to see you next time. Bye bye.